They say betrayal cuts deepest when it comes from family, but nothing could have prepared me for what my own sister did. She didn't just hurt me, she tried to steal my entire future. And for a while, it looked like she had actually won. Pause. Before I continue, if you love intense real-life revenge and betrayal stories, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe to the channel. That way, you won't miss the next shocking story. I had worked at my company for nearly 5 years, from the very bottom as a simple assistant, slowly moving up with sleepless nights, endless overtime, and sacrifices. While others spent weekends out with friends, I spent mine drafting reports, preparing presentations, and polishing details no one else cared about. It wasn't because I loved suffering. It was because I had a dream. I wanted to prove myself. I wanted my parents, my boss, and even the world to see that I was capable of more than anyone expected. And finally, after all those years, the chance came. My manager called me into his office with a small smile on his face and said, "You're being considered for a promotion. The CEO himself will make the final call, but your work has spoken for itself." My heart nearly burst with joy. All those years of effort were about to pay off. But what I didn't know was that someone very close to me was about to turn that joy into a nightmare. Growing up, my younger sister Alina and I had always been close, or at least I thought we were. She was charming, confident, and always seemed to get what she wanted without trying too hard. I, on the other hand, was the hard-working one, the planner, the one who sacrificed. But I never resented her. She was my sister. I wanted the best for her. If she needed money, I gave it. If she wanted to borrow my clothes, I let her. If she had dreams, I cheered for her. Yet somewhere along the line, she stopped seeing me as a sister. She started seeing me as competition. A week later, the day finally came. I was given a sealed envelope at the office. It was the official promotion letter. My hands trembled as I held it. This was it. My hard work, written and stamped in black and white. I didn't even open it right away. I wanted to share the moment with my family first. So, after work, I carefully placed the letter in my bag and went home. That evening, I told everyone at the dinner table, "The letter is here. Tomorrow, I'll open it in front of all of you. I want us to celebrate together." My parents clapped, my younger brother cheered, and even Alina smiled. She hugged me and said, "I'm so proud of you, sis." Her words warmed my heart. But behind that smile, something else was hiding. Something I didn't notice until it was too late. The next morning, I reached for my bag to bring out the envelope. But it wasn't there. At first, I thought maybe I misplaced it. I searched my desk, my drawers, even under my bed. Nothing. My chest tightened with panic. This wasn't just paper. It was proof of my promotion, the key to the next step in my career. Then, as I rushed to the living room, I froze. There she was, Alina, standing in front of my parents, holding my letter, and reading it aloud as if it belonged to her. She looked up at them with tears in her eyes and said, "I can't believe they chose me for this. All my hard work, finally recognized." I was stunned. My voice caught in my throat. Was this really happening? My own sister, stealing my moment, stealing my future, right in front of my family? My parents clapped again, this time for her. They believed her. Why wouldn't they? She looked so convincing, so genuine. And me? I just stood there, speechless, my hands trembling. If I said something then, it would look like jealousy. It would look like I couldn't handle her success. So I stayed quiet. But inside, something broke. I knew one thing. If Alina could lie this easily in front of family, she wouldn't stop there. She would walk into my company, claim the position, and destroy everything I had worked for. But not if I could help it. That night, I sat alone in my room, staring at the empty space in my bag where the letter had once been. I realized I couldn't just let it go. This wasn't about pride anymore. It was about justice. I had earned that promotion, and I would not let her take it from me. I didn't know how yet, but I promised myself I would expose her. And when I did, it wouldn't just be in front of my family. It would be in front of the CEO himself. That was the moment when the storm began to gather. And soon, it was going to break. The morning after my sister claimed my promotion letter as her own, I barely slept. My mind raced with questions. Would she really dare to take it all the way to my company? Would the CEO, who barely knew me personally, believe her story if she showed up first with the letter in her hand? By the time the sun rose, my fears were already becoming reality. Over breakfast, my parents were congratulating her, calling relatives, proudly saying, "Our Alina has finally made it big." It cut me deeply, because those words were supposed to be about me. Every smile they gave her felt like a dagger. I stayed silent, but inside, a storm was raging. Later that day, while she was out, I checked her room. And there it was, the envelope, lying neatly on her desk as if it belonged to her. My hands itched to grab it back, but something stopped me. If I just took it, it would turn into her word against mine. No proof, no evidence. I needed something smarter, something undeniable. That was when I decided I wouldn't fight her in the shadows. I would wait until she exposed herself in front of everyone, including the CEO. The following week, she began to change. She acted like she was already above me, like she had authority. She would smile at me sweetly in front of our parents, but when no one was watching, she would whisper little jabs. Guess I was always meant for bigger things. Don't be jealous, sis. Not everyone is born for success. It stung, but I bit my tongue, because if I reacted too soon, I'd lose, and I wasn't about to lose. Days later, my manager called me again. The CEO is inviting all candidates to a private meeting. Bring your official promotion confirmation letter. It'll be part of the final round. My heart sank. Alina had it. If she showed up before me, everything could be ruined. But that's when fate gave me a chance. That evening, Alina strutted into the living room and casually said, "Oh, by the way, I have a meeting with your CEO tomorrow. He wants to see me about the promotion. Looks like your company finally recognized real talent." She smirked as if victory was already hers. I didn't react. But inside, my plan began to take shape. The night before her meeting, I waited until she fell asleep. Quietly, I stepped into her room. The letter was gone. She must have hidden it. But while searching, I found something even better. On her desk was her laptop, open but on sleep mode. I gently tapped the spacebar, and there it was. A half-written email draft, addressed to the CEO. In it, she bragged about being the most deserving employee, attaching a scanned copy of the letter, my letter, as proof. She had even signed her name under it. My stomach twisted, but I also smiled. She had made a mistake. That digital copy with her fake name was my weapon. I quietly took photos with my phone and closed her laptop again. The next morning, she dressed in her finest suit, her confidence shining like armor. "Wish me luck," she said smugly as she left the house. I followed shortly after. When I entered the office, I saw her sitting in the waiting area outside the CEO's office. Legs crossed, grinning as if she had already won. She glanced at me and whispered, "You can sit here and watch me take what should have been yours." I said nothing. Instead, I held onto the photos in my phone like a sword. Minutes later, the secretary called her in. She walked inside, head high. I could hear her voice faintly through the door, cheerful, confident, selling the lie she had rehearsed. Then it was my turn. The CEO looked at me, puzzled. Two sisters, both claiming the same promotion. Quite an unusual situation. He placed the letter on his desk, the very one Alina had handed him. Alina smirked at me from across the table, her eyes saying, "Checkmate." But the game wasn't over. I took a deep breath and said, "Sir, with all respect, that letter was stolen from me. And I have proof that it's been forged." The room went silent. I pulled out my phone, opened the photos, and slid them across the desk. The CEO's eyes narrowed as he read Alina's draft email with her name signed under a scanned copy of my letter. His expression hardened. Alina's smile faltered. "That's not real. She's making it up," she stammered, but her voice cracked. The CEO leaned back, his gaze cold. "So you thought you could trick me? Pretend you were the one chosen? Do you realize the seriousness of this?" For the first time, Alina had no words. I stayed calm, but inside, relief surged through me. I had finally turned the tables, but little did I know, this was just the beginning. My sister wasn't finished yet, and the war between us was far from over. The CEO's office that day felt like a battlefield. After I showed the proof on my phone, Alina sat there trembling, her face pale, her eyes darting around for a way out. The CEO was furious, but surprisingly, he didn't fire her on the spot. He simply said, "Leave my office. We'll deal with this later. Right now, I need to speak with your sister alone." Alina stormed out, her heels striking the floor like thunder. She didn't even glance back at me. But I knew that look in her eyes, the look of someone who wasn't going to accept defeat quietly. When the door closed, the CEO leaned forward. "I've seen many schemes in my career, but this is different. I want you to know, you've already earned the promotion. The letter was always meant for you. But be careful, your sister will not let this go easily." His words were both comforting and chilling. I walked out of that office with the weight of victory in my hands, but also with the fear of what was coming next. Because if Alina had shown me anything, it was that she wasn't just a jealous sibling. She was dangerous. When I got home that evening, the atmosphere was heavy. My parents were waiting in the living room, their faces grim. Alina sat beside them, her eyes red from fake tears. She jumped up the moment she saw me and shouted, "How could you? How could you humiliate me like that in front of the CEO?" I blinked in disbelief. "You tried to steal my promotion, Alina. You forged my letter, you lied to everyone." But before I could say more, my father raised his hand. "Enough. We don't want to hear fighting in this house." Alina told us everything. My heart sank. "Everything?" Alina sniffled dramatically. "She's always been jealous of me. She couldn't stand that I might get ahead of her for once. So she made up fake evidence to ruin me. She embarrassed me in front of everyone just because she can't share the spotlight." The audacity made my jaw drop. She was twisting everything, painting me as the villain. And the worst part? My parents believed her. My mother's eyes were cold when she spoke. "You two were given the same chance, and instead of being happy for your sister, you tried to destroy her. Shame on you." I stood there frozen. How could they believe her lies over me? After everything I had sacrificed for this family, how could they look at me with disappointment while she played the victim? That night, I cried quietly in my room, not because I lost their support, but because I realized how ruthless my sister truly was. She didn't just want the promotion, she wanted to destroy me completely, to make sure no one would ever see me as the hero of my own story. Days passed, and though I officially held the promotion at work, the situation at home grew worse. My parents avoided me, whispering to each other in hushed tones. Relatives began calling, saying they had heard I had backstabbed Alina. She was spreading lies faster than I could fight them. One evening, I overheard her on the phone with a friend, laughing. "Oh, don't worry. She may have won this time, but I'll ruin her soon. Just watch. She thinks she's so smart, but she has no idea what's coming." Her words lit a fire in me. This wasn't just sibling rivalry anymore. She wanted to destroy my career, my reputation, even my relationship with our family. And if I didn't do something, she might succeed. At work, I poured myself into the new role, determined not to let her sabotage me. I worked late nights, proving to the CEO and the board that their choice had been right. But still, every time my phone rang, I braced myself for bad news, because Alina was relentless. And sure enough, one day, my manager pulled me aside. "We received an anonymous complaint about you. Claims that you lied on your application and exaggerated your achievements. If these allegations are true, it could cost you your position." I froze. Anonymous complaint? I didn't even need to guess who it was from. I walked out of his office with my fists clenched. Alina had officially declared war. She wasn't satisfied with stealing from me. She wanted to erase me, but she had underestimated me. If she wanted war, then I would give her one. Not with lies, not with schemes, but with the truth. The kind of truth that would expose her completely, in front of everyone she had fooled. And deep down, I knew one thing for certain. The next move would be mine. After the anonymous complaint landed on my manager's desk, I realized this fight could no longer be handled with quiet pleas or emotional arguments. Alina had weaponized lies, and the only thing that could stop her was ironclad proof, something that could be shown, time-stamped, and traced back to her without any room for doubt. I started where the trail had first appeared, her laptop. The draft email I'd photographed was important, but I knew screenshots could be dismissed as tampered. I needed original files, metadata, and witnesses. First, I called an old friend in IT, someone I trusted who owed me a favor. I told him the truth in a single breath. What happened with the letter, the draft email, and the anonymous complaint. I didn't hide the family drama. Instead, I asked him to look at email headers and file properties, the kind of boring, technical details that reveal when a document was created, who uploaded it, and from which IP address. He agreed to help. He explained things simply. Metadata doesn't lie. If a scanned copy of my promotion letter had been attached to an email from Alina's account, the headers and timestamps would show it. If she had scanned a document at home and emailed it from her device, the history would trace back to her login. The thought of that cold digital trail made me feel a little less helpless. While he pulled technical logs, I dug for other pieces. I texted coworkers I'd trusted for years, asking casually if anyone had noticed anything odd about recruitment emails or rumors. One junior colleague replied with a trembling message. She was at reception yesterday asking questions about promotions. She left very fast when the secretary mentioned the CEO would meet candidates. Small, but useful. Another coworker admitted they'd received a forwarded version of the letter from an unknown address, the exact copy Alina had used. Slowly, the picture was assembling itself. Next, I checked our building's security. Our apartment complex had a lobby camera that recorded for 48 hours. I went to the security office, explained the situation without dramatics, and asked if I could view footage from the day the letter went missing. The guard, sympathetic to my tone, rewound the video. There, plain as day, was Alina, walking into our building at dusk, carrying a slim envelope, pausing in the corridor, and then leaving with a different expression than when she entered. The tape showed her heading straight to the courier room, where packages are scanned and passed through the mail slot. It was a small, simple act, but on replay it looked deliberate, calculated. I compiled everything into a single folder: photos of the draft email, metadata printouts my IT friend produced, coworker statements, the lobby footage stills, and the forwarded message showing the exact scanned copy Alina had sent. It felt clinical, like preparing evidence for a case. But it was mine, and this time truth had weight. Then I planned where to drop it. A private HR meeting would be easy to ignore. A quiet whisper could bury it. I needed a place where truth and authority met, the board. I scheduled a formal meeting with HR and the CEO, sent them the dossier, and calmly asked for a hearing in front of the company's senior team. I wrote the message plainly. There were serious allegations of fraud and forgery involving my promotion process, and I had proof. I attached only the most damning pieces, the metadata and the lobby footage stills, to make sure they looked at it. On the morning of the meeting, tension felt like static in the air. Alina had been acting overly sweet in public, but at home she was distant, snapping at my parents in private and throwing thinly veiled threats when she thought no one could hear. I knew she was good at playing victim, but now the game was turning. HR called me into the conference room, and the CEO sat at the head of the table, his face unreadable. I placed the folder on the table and, without a tremor, laid out everything. I let the screenshot speak, watched the CEO's eyes move across metadata that showed file creation times and the originating IP addresses, and then I showed the stills from the lobby camera, Each piece fit into the next like a lock finding its key. Alina arrived, summoned by HR, and walked in like she owned the moment. Her face went pale when she saw the CEO and the board members. That flicker of fear was the first real crack I'd seen in her confident mask. She must have realized that this wasn't just another complaint. This was proof. "Explain this," the CEO said, sliding the folder toward her. Her hands clawed at a thin sheet of denial. Her voice at first was a practiced blend of hurt and indignation. She insisted she had tried to do the right thing, that someone was framing her, that I was deluded and jealous. She blamed stress, miscommunication, even me. But with every claim she made, the evidence on the table traced back to her account, her laptop, and her movements. The room grew quieter, the silence heavier. Then something I hadn't expected happened. One of the junior staff, the one who'd seen her at reception, stood up. He told the board what he'd seen, hesitated for only a second, then described her hurried questions and her expression as she left. Another colleague mentioned an odd forwarded copy that matched my letter. The combined weight of digital proof and eyewitness accounts made Alina's words thin, like paper against wind. She looked at me. Not with anger now, but with something raw and animal. Panic. For the first time, she wasn't rehearsing lines. The CEO's jaw tightened, and his voice carried a finality I'd never heard from him before. "We will investigate, and if this is proven, there will be serious consequences." As she stumbled out of the room, shoulders hunched, I felt a strange mix of relief and dread. Relief because the truth had been shown where it mattered. Dread because I knew humiliation could breed new kinds of revenge. Alina had lost a battle, but the war wasn't over. She had people who still believed her, and she had pride that could twist into something destructive. Walking back to my desk, I realized the hardest part was not winning the proof. It was what came after. The exposure had started a reaction I couldn't fully predict, and as I sat down, my phone buzzed with a message that made my stomach drop. A screenshot of my parents' group chat, where Alina had already been rewriting history. The next move would be public, personal, and brutal, and I had to be ready. The day after the board meeting, I expected some quiet. I thought Alina might retreat, lick her wounds, and finally stop fighting a war she couldn't win. But I should have known better. My sister never admitted defeat. She turned it into a new story, one where she was always the victim and I was always the villain. When I came home that evening, the atmosphere was heavy, thick with tension. My mother wouldn't even look at me. My father muttered something under his breath and left the room. And there was Alina, sitting on the couch, staring at me with a smug little smile. "What did you tell them?" my mother snapped, her voice trembling. "How could you drag your own sister in front of her boss like that? Do you know what people are saying about us now? Do you know how embarrassed we feel?" I froze. Embarrassed? I was the one whose promotion she tried to steal. I was the one who had to fight just to be believed. Yet here I was, being treated like the criminal in my own home. Alina dabbed at her eyes with a tissue and whispered, "I told you." She hates me. She's jealous. She'll do anything to make me look bad. Her voice cracked in just the right places, soft and broken, like a wounded bird. My parents wrapped their arms around her, comforting her, glaring at me as if I had committed some unforgivable sin. It felt like betrayal all over again, not just from her, but from them. That night, I sat in my room, unable to eat, unable to sleep. My phone buzzed nonstop with messages from relatives. "Why are you fighting with your sister over a job? You should apologize to her. She's family. You're ruining your parents' peace." It was clear Alina had been busy. She wasn't just twisting the story at home. She was spreading it everywhere, poisoning the well before I could drink from it. At work, things were stable. My CEO and HR stood firmly by me, and with the evidence in hand, no one doubted my side anymore. But outside those office walls, it felt like I was living in a different world, one where my own blood painted me as the villain. I could have ignored it. I could have decided my career was enough. That family approval didn't matter. But it did matter. Not because I craved their praise, but because this wasn't just about me anymore. It was about truth, about refusing to let lies rule the narrative. And Alina had made one mistake. She underestimated how much people respected transparency. I started to collect not just digital proof, but a timeline. I wrote down everything from the day I got the letter, to the moment she read it aloud in front of my parents, to the boardroom confrontation. I kept it clean, factual, and free of emotion. No anger, no exaggeration, just truth. Then, one Sunday afternoon, when extended family came over for lunch, I made my move. The house was filled with chatter, laughter, and the smell of food. Alina floated around, telling whispered stories to aunts and uncles, her sad expression convincing as always. When everyone sat down, I stood up. My voice shook at first, but then steadied. I need to say something. You've all heard one side of the story, Alina's side. But you haven't heard the truth. Alina jumped in immediately, panic flashing in her eyes. Oh, here we go again. She can't stop attacking me. Sit down, my father barked. Let her speak. That silence gave me my chance. I pulled out printed copies of the metadata report, the stills from the security footage, and even a transcript of the boardroom hearing. I laid them on the table in front of everyone. This is what really happened. She took my promotion letter. She tried to pass it off as her own. And when she was caught, she started spreading lies about me. The room grew tense. Relatives leaned forward, flipping through the papers. Whispers rippled across the table. Some looked at me with wide eyes. Others turned their gaze on Alina, their expressions shifting from sympathy to suspicion. Alina's mask cracked. She stuttered, laughed nervously, tried to brush it off as overreacting or just a misunderstanding. But the evidence was too clear, too undeniable. And the more she spoke, the more desperate she sounded. For the first time, I saw my parents hesitate. My father's brows furrowed, my mother's lips parted in doubt. They still loved her, of course they did. But doubt had finally entered the room, and that was something she couldn't erase. The lunch ended in awkward silence. Guests left early, muttering to each other. My parents avoided both of us. And Alina? She stormed into her room, slamming the door so hard the walls shook. I should have felt relief. I had finally turned the tide, at least a little. But deep down, I knew this wasn't her final act. Because if I knew anything about my sister, it was this. When cornered, she didn't surrender. She attacked, and the attack she was about to launch would strike deeper than ever before. The silence at home didn't last long. Alina wasn't the kind of person to lick her wounds quietly. She had tasted humiliation in front of our family, and that humiliation burned her pride more than any career failure. I knew she would come back swinging, but I didn't realize just how far she was willing to go. 2 weeks later, I walked into the office, smiling faintly as colleagues congratulated me on handling things so professionally. The CEO had praised me privately, and my name was now officially attached to the new leadership project. For the first time in months, I felt a sense of peace, a sense that maybe things were finally settling down. But peace doesn't last when someone like Alina is lurking in the shadows. That afternoon, I was called into the HR office. My stomach tightened the moment I saw the look on the manager's face. Serious, cautious, almost apologetic. Close the door, she said softly. On her desk sat a manila folder stuffed with printed emails. She slid them toward me. We received an anonymous report, she began carefully. It accuses you of unethical behavior, of falsifying documents to secure your promotion. My heart dropped. I flipped through the papers, my hands trembling. Dozens of emails, supposedly from me, filled with smug boasts about outsmarting everyone and stealing the spotlight. Every one of them painted me as manipulative, power-hungry, and dishonest. And then it clicked. Alina. She had created fake emails in my name. I looked up at HR, my voice sharp. These aren't real. I never wrote any of this. Look at the language. It doesn't even sound like me. The manager nodded slowly. I know. That's why we haven't taken any action. But we need to investigate. For now, you'll have to sit out of meetings until this is resolved." It felt like the floor dropped beneath me. Alina hadn't just tried to tarnish my image at home. She had brought her war into my career, the one place where I thought I was safe. That night, as I sat in my apartment staring at the city lights, anger coursed through me. She was playing dirty, crossing lines that could have destroyed my future completely. And then my phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number. "This is just the beginning. You should have stayed quiet. You should have let me win. I knew it was her." I didn't even need proof. It was the kind of threat only Alina could deliver, taunting, smug, and laced with malice. But this time, instead of fear, I felt something else. Clarity. If she wanted war, I would give her war. But unlike her, I wouldn't play in the shadows. I would bring everything into the light. The next morning, I requested an official digital audit of the emails. IT got involved, tracing IP addresses, checking metadata, and analyzing the timestamps. The results came back faster than expected. The emails weren't sent from my company account at all. They originated from a personal account, one tied to a device that matched Alina's. When I held the report in my hands, I almost laughed. She had been sloppy, arrogant, too sure of herself to cover her tracks properly. But I didn't run straight to HR with it. No, I had learned that exposing her was only half the battle. What really hurt her wasn't being caught. It was being seen, witnessed, unmasked in front of people she wanted to impress. So I waited. The perfect opportunity came during a company town hall, a big quarterly event where department heads gave updates and the CEO addressed the entire staff. Dozens of people were present in person, with even more tuned in online. When it was my turn to present the progress of the new leadership project, I stepped up to the microphone. My slides were ready. My voice was steady, but before I began, I paused. "There's something I need to clear up," I said, scanning the room. "Recently, there have been false accusations against me, emails suggesting I cheated my way into this role. I want everyone here to know those were fabrications. And thanks to IT, I can prove it." A ripple of murmurs filled the auditorium. I clicked to the next slide, revealing the digital audit report, with highlighted evidence showing the emails traced back to a device linked to my sister. I didn't say her name. I didn't have to. Gasps echoed through the hall. Some people shook their heads in disbelief. Others whispered furiously to their neighbors. My CEO stood up, voice ringing with authority. "This matter will be dealt with. But let me make one thing clear. My name earned this promotion, fair and square, and no amount of lies will change that." The applause that followed wasn't just polite. It was thunderous. It was approval, validation, and support, all washing over me in waves. For the first time, I felt untouchable. But Alina? She was done hiding. Because that night, when I got home, she was waiting for me, her eyes wild, her voice trembling with rage. "You think you've beaten me?" she hissed. "This isn't over. I'll make sure you regret ever crossing me." And I realized the real climax hadn't even arrived yet. After the town hall, I thought the war was finally over. I thought I had proven myself so completely that Alina couldn't possibly have another move left. The evidence was undeniable. The CEO himself had spoken. What else could she possibly do? But I had underestimated her again. Because Alina wasn't fighting for truth, or even for a job anymore. She was fighting for pride, for ego, for that twisted satisfaction of seeing me ruined, even if it meant burning everything down around her. A week passed. Work was calm again. Family visits were tense but manageable, and for the first time in months, I allowed myself to breathe. But then, late one Friday night, I received an email from an unfamiliar address. My hands trembled as I opened it. Inside was a long letter, not to me but to the CEO, copied to multiple board members, and even a few of my colleagues. The subject line read, "The truth about your new manager," and the words inside? They weren't about the promotion anymore. They were personal. Alina had taken pieces of my private life, twisted them into ugly lies, and woven them into a narrative that made me look unstable, untrustworthy, and dangerous. She claimed I had mental breakdowns, that I lashed out violently at home, that I was a manipulator who preyed on people's sympathy. It was a full character assassination. A knife aimed straight at my reputation, my dignity, my very identity. My chest tightened as I read. Tears blurred the words. How could my own sister weaponize my life against me like this? Family disagreements were one thing, but dragging personal lies into my workplace, that was a line I never imagined she'd cross. I forwarded the email immediately to HR, explaining the situation, attaching proof of Alina's previous actions. They responded quickly, assuring me they would handle it. But I could still feel the sting. The whispers I knew were already spreading. The curious glances from colleagues who had read the accusations before HR could suppress them. And that's when I realized something crucial. If I kept letting her fight in the shadows, she would always find new ways to strike. The only way to stop her was to bring her into the light completely. That Sunday, I arranged a family meeting. Not just my parents, everyone. Aunts, uncles, cousins. I invited them all. If Alina wanted an audience for her lies, I would give her one. But this time, I would control the stage. When the day arrived, the living room was packed. My parents looked weary, worn down by months of tension. Alina walked in late, her chin high, eyes flashing with defiance. "Why are we here?" she demanded. I stood in the center of the room holding a folder. My voice was calm, but inside my heart pounded like a drum. "We're here because this has gone too far. You've told stories, spread rumors, even forged evidence. But last week you crossed a line. You attacked me in my workplace with lies about my personal life. Lies that could have destroyed everything I've worked for," she scoffed. "Oh, please. Everyone knows you've always been dramatic. You'll say anything to make me look bad." Without a word, I opened the folder and pulled out the IT audit, the HR statements, and the forwarded email with digital tracing. I handed them around the room one by one. "Here's the proof. Every false email. Every fake claim. All traced back to her devices. Read it. See for yourselves." The room grew heavy with silence as pages shuffled, eyes widened, lips pressed tight in shock. My father leaned back, stunned. My mother covered her mouth with her hand. A cousin muttered, "I can't believe this." Alina's face flushed crimson. She tried to laugh, to call it all a setup. But her voice cracked. Her usual confidence was slipping, cracking like glass under pressure. I looked her straight in the eye. "You wanted me destroyed, but all you've done is expose yourself. I will not let you drag me down anymore." For once, she had no comeback. She stormed out, slamming the door behind her, leaving the family stunned and silent in her wake. That night, for the first time, my parents came to me. My mother's eyes were red with tears. My father's voice was heavy with regret. "We should have believed you sooner," he whispered. I didn't know whether to feel relief or sadness. Because the truth was, even though I had won, a part of me still wished I hadn't needed to fight my own sister this way. But Alina had chosen this path. And I knew, deep down, that this final betrayal would also be her undoing. After that family gathering, the silence that followed felt different. It wasn't the silence of doubt anymore. It was the silence of realization. The moment when everyone finally saw Alina for who she truly was. But silence doesn't erase damage. And Alina wasn't done. For days, I avoided her. At home, she locked herself in her room, slamming doors whenever I walked by. At work, I stayed focused, drowning myself in projects, pretending her shadow wasn't still looming behind me. Then came the breaking point. One Tuesday morning, HR summoned me again. This time their expressions weren't cautious, they were sharp, serious. "We've concluded our investigation," the manager said. "Your sister attempted to impersonate an employee of this company. She sent fraudulent emails to our CEO and board members from a spoofed account. That crosses into legal territory." My breath caught. Legal territory. Those two words carried weight heavier than anything I had expected. "What happens now?" I asked quietly. The HR manager glanced at the company lawyer who had joined us in the meeting. "It means charges can be filed. Identity fraud, Corporate defamation. If the company decides to press forward, she could face very real consequences. For a moment, I felt cold all over. This was bigger than family drama now. This was courtrooms, fines, maybe even worse. I thought about my parents, about the shame they'd feel, about the irreversible damage this could cause our family name. But then I thought about everything Alina had done. The stolen letter, the lies, the fake emails, the personal attacks. She hadn't just tried to hurt me, she had tried to destroy me. And if I stayed silent now, she would only find another way to strike. So I looked straight at the lawyer and said, "Do it. Press charges." The next few weeks unfolded like a storm. Alina was summoned, questioned, exposed piece by piece. Evidence piled up against her, undeniable and overwhelming. The girl who had once held our family's sympathy now stood stripped of excuses, her pride in ruins. At home, the tension reached a breaking point. One night, my parents begged me to withdraw the charges. My mother cried, her voice cracking. "She's still your sister. Please, don't let her life be ruined." I clenched my fists, fighting back tears of my own. "She ruined mine first. She tried to take everything from me. And you stood by and watched while she did it. How many more chances do you expect me to give her?" They had no answer. Only silence. The day of the hearing arrived. Alina walked in, shoulders stiff, eyes burning with the last scraps of her pride. For the first time, she wasn't in control. For the first time, she wasn't the storyteller. She was the story. The judge read the charges. The lawyers presented evidence, emails, metadata, testimonies. Even my CEO submitted a statement confirming the chaos her lies had caused. Alina tried to defend herself, but her words collapsed under the weight of proof. I sat there, watching her squirm, and for a moment, I felt something unexpected. Pity. Because beneath the arrogance, beneath the rage, she was still my sister. A girl so consumed by envy that she had destroyed her own future. But pity couldn't erase justice. And when the gavel finally struck, Alina was found guilty. The sentence wasn't prison. The judge gave her probation, fines, and mandatory counseling. But the shame alone was a heavier punishment than any cell could hold. As we walked out of the courtroom, the press outside snapped photos, microphones pushed forward. For once I didn't hide. I stood tall, answered calmly, and let the world know the truth. I fought for my integrity. And no one, not even family, has the right to take that away. That night, when I came home, the house was quiet. My parents didn't speak. Alina's room was empty. She had packed her things and left without a word. I didn't chase her. I couldn't, because this wasn't just about her anymore. This was about me reclaiming my life. For the first time in years, I slept peacefully. The storm was over, or so I thought. Because endings, as I've learned, rarely come clean. They leave behind scars, and scars have their own stories to tell. In the days following the hearing, life felt different. Not lighter exactly, but quieter, like the air after a storm has passed. The chaos, the lies, the endless back-and-forth battles, all of it had finally come to an end. But silence comes with its own weight. At home, the atmosphere was heavy. My parents walked like ghosts, still processing the collapse of the daughter they once defended so blindly. My mother cried often when she thought no one was looking. My father sat in silence at the dinner table, staring at his plate. They had wanted to believe in Alina so badly that facing the truth left them broken, ashamed. And Alina herself. She was gone. She packed her things and disappeared into the city. No calls, no messages, no trace. Only whispers from distant relatives who said she was keeping to herself and trying to rebuild. Part of me hoped she would rebuild. Because as much as I hated what she did, I never truly wanted her destroyed. I only wanted my life back, my dignity. My truth work became my anchor. The CEO continued to trust me, the board respected me, and my colleagues, even those who had once doubted me, treated me with newfound admiration. "You handled it with such grace," one of them told me. Most people would have broken under that kind of pressure. But the truth? I had broken. Many nights I cried alone, wishing things had been different, wishing I hadn't needed to fight my own sister like she was an enemy. Still, every time doubt crept in, I reminded myself, strength isn't about avoiding battles. It's about standing when you're pushed, speaking when you're silenced, and holding your ground when the world, even your own family, turns against you. One evening, months later, I visited my parents. They looked older somehow, more fragile. Over tea, my father finally spoke words I had longed to hear. "We were wrong. We failed you." His voice cracked as he said it. "We let her lies blind us. We should have trusted you from the beginning." My mother took my hand, tears brimming in her eyes. "We've lost one daughter. Please don't let us lose you too." I squeezed her hand gently. "You haven't lost me. But you need to understand. Love without truth isn't love. It's just illusion." That night, I walked home under the streetlights, reflecting on everything that had happened. Alina's betrayal had nearly destroyed me, but in some strange, twisted way, it had also rebuilt me. I was stronger now, clearer, sharper. I understood something I never had before. Family doesn't mean blind loyalty. It means accountability, respect, and honesty. Without those, blood is just a word. And maybe that was the hardest lesson of all. Weeks later, I received a message. It was short, unsigned, but I knew it was from her. I never meant for it to go this far. I just wanted to be seen. I wanted to matter. For a long time, I stared at the screen. My first instinct was anger. After all, she had nearly ruined my life. But beneath that anger, I felt something else. Sadness. Because those words weren't the words of a villain. They were the words of someone lost in envy, trapped in their own insecurities. I didn't reply. Not because I hated her, but because some wounds take time to heal, and some scars never fade. Instead, I closed my eyes and whispered to myself, "I matter." I always have, and I don't need her approval to prove it. And that, I think, is the lesson I want to leave you with. We don't choose the family we're born into, but we do choose how much power their choices have over us. Betrayal hurts, especially when it comes from blood. But sometimes, standing up for yourself, even against your own sister, is the only way to protect your future. Because at the end of the day, your worth isn't defined by who supports you or who tears you down. It's defined by the truth you stand on and the courage you carry when the world turns dark. And if you ever find yourself in the middle of betrayal, remember this: revenge isn't always about destroying the other person. Sometimes the sweetest revenge is simply surviving and thriving in spite of them. I survived. I thrived. And though the scars remain, they remind me of something priceless, that I fought for myself, and I won. Months had passed since the courtroom verdict. Life had slowly returned to a semblance of normalcy, though nothing would ever be exactly the same. Alina was gone from my life, her presence replaced by a quiet void that was at once sad and freeing. Home no longer carried the weight of constant tension. The air was lighter, and the house felt like a safe place again. Work had become my sanctuary. I threw myself into projects, proving not only my worth to the company but to myself. Promotions, accolades, and recognition followed. But the real victory wasn't the title or the salary. It was knowing that my integrity had survived a storm so severe that it could have crushed me. And yet, even with all this success, I carried a lesson deeper than any career achievement. Betrayal, especially from someone you love, cuts deeper than any external enemy. It undermines your confidence, makes you question your own perception of reality, and can leave you isolated in a world where everyone seems to believe the lies instead of the truth. I spent long evenings reflecting on my journey. I realized that the real fight wasn't about revenge. It was about survival. Not survival in the physical sense, but survival of my identity, my values, and my future. When Alina tried to steal my promotion, she thought that was all she had to take. But she underestimated me. She underestimated my patience, my ability to gather evidence, and my resolve to face her head-on. even when everyone else doubted me. That confrontation taught me something crucial. Evidence and truth carry weight beyond emotions. Lies may temporarily blind people, but truth, once revealed, can shatter even the most carefully constructed illusions. Alina had tried to rewrite history, but she couldn't erase the facts. And in the end, facts speak louder than words, rumors, or false tears. I also learned a lesson about family. Blood does not guarantee loyalty. Love is not measured by shared DNA. Trust must be earned and respect cannot be demanded. My parents, though initially blinded by their affection for Alina, eventually recognized the truth, but only after watching the damage she had caused. That realization left scars on all of us, yet it also brought clarity. Relationships without honesty are fragile, no matter how close the bond may seem. And then there's the lesson about strength. Standing up to Alina required more than courage. It required strategy, patience, and self-control. It required resisting the impulse to lash out in anger and instead using evidence, timing, and calm reasoning. That, I realized, was the real power. Not the satisfaction of seeing her punished, but the ability to remain unbroken, even in the face of deceit and betrayal. Looking back, I understood the final truth. Revenge is not always about exposing the other person. Sometimes it's about reclaiming your own life. It's about proving to yourself that you will not be destroyed, that lies cannot define you, and that your value does not depend on who chooses to believe you. That is the revenge worth having. Quiet, personal, and unassailable. Alina's actions left me wary, of course. I remain cautious about trust, about giving others power over my life. But I also learned that life moves forward, that wounds heal over time, and that peace is possible, even after the most personal betrayals. And so, here I stand, not as a victim of jealousy, lies, or deceit, but as someone who fought, endured, and emerged stronger. My promotion was not just a career milestone. It was proof that integrity, patience, and resilience can overcome the darkest of betrayals. For anyone listening to my story, remember this. Life will challenge you in ways you never expected. People you love may betray you. Lies may spread like wildfire. And sometimes the people closest to you may be the ones who try to take everything, but never forget, your worth is your own. Your integrity is your shield. And while revenge may seem sweet, the ultimate victory comes from surviving, standing tall and thriving despite the storm. I survived. I thrived. And in doing so, I discovered something even more valuable than success, the unshakable strength within myself that no one, not even my own sister, could ever take away.